So what do you think it feels like to meet death? I don't mean as some abstract idea, but as an actual visitor in your hospital room. Today we're going to walk through an absolutely incredible story about a medical crisis that pushed one man right to the very edge, and the unbelievable race against time to pull him back.
Okay, so picture this. The date is December 9th, 2024. And no, this isn't some metaphor, it's not a dream. The narrator literally describes death walking into his room. And get this, not as some spooky, shadowy figure, but with a confident gait and purposeful steps. It's that calm, matter-of-fact description that is just so chilling, you know? It really sets the stage for everything that's about to happen.
All right, so let's talk about the man at the center of this story, the one facing down this uninvited visitor. We find him in a hospital in Ghana. He's bare-chested, hooked up to a mess of tubes, and in just excruciating pain. But here's the thing that's just so wild. It's his reaction. There's no panic, right? He's not begging for more time. It's just a simple nod. He's completely resigned to his fate. It really seems like he's ready to go.
So, what was going on inside his body to cause all this? To bring him, literally, to death's door? Let's dive into the medical reality of this crisis, because it's pretty intense.
The diagnosis? Acute pancreatitis. Now, it was all triggered by a gallstone, which sounds like a fairly common problem, right? But in this case, it just spiraled into this incredibly rare, catastrophic event. And look, we are not talking about a simple stomachache here. What happens is, the pancreas's own digestive enzymes, they activate too early, and the organ starts to literally digest itself. I mean, can you even imagine? The pain is supposed to be just off the charts.
And it wasn't just the pancreas. The problem was creating this cascade of failures all through his body. First, pancreatic necrosis. That means a full 30% of the organ was already dead tissue. Then, portal vein thrombosis. That's a huge blood clot blocking a major vein going to his liver. On top of that, his lungs were filling up with fluid. And his blood pressure? A staggering 210/120. I mean, that's deep in the heart failure zone. So the bottom line is, his body wasn't just fighting one thing. It was systematically shutting down on multiple fronts at once.
But here's the turn. While he was in that room, just passively accepting his fate, his family and friends, they were having none of it. They were about to launch an absolutely herculean effort to save his life.
This right here, this is the message that changes everything. It's from a close friend, a doctor over in Texas, and he's talking to the narrator's daughter, Charlene. It is just a brutal, terrifying warning, right? We could lose him. But then there's that one little sliver of hope. If we can get him to Switzerland quickly, he will survive. That single phrase, he will survive, that's all Charlene needed. It was the starting gun for this insane race against time.
Of course, that hope came with a giant roadblock. A massive price tag. $80,000. And they needed it up front, in cash, just to get a Swiss Air Rescue medevac plane to even take off from Zurich and fly to Ghana. I mean, that is an astronomical amount of money, seemingly impossible to raise in just a few hours.
And yet you have to see how quickly his community just mobilized. It's incredible. His friends, Danilo and Charles, they immediately pledged tens of thousands of their own money. At the exact same time, the narrator's ex-partner, Monica, makes just one phone call to her brother, Pius. And his response? It's just, wow. No questions asked, no hesitation. He transfers the full 80 grand, right then and there. He even tells the airline, hey, I'll bring it in a bag of cash if that's faster, just to make sure there are no delays. Amazing.
So, the money's paid, the plane is in the air. It feels like this is it, right? The rescue is actually happening. They've done the impossible. But then, everything, and I mean everything, starts to fall apart.
I mean, can you just imagine the absolute soul-crushing devastation in that hospital room? Monica calls with the news. The rescue plane, their one and only shot at survival, has turned around. It's going back to Zurich. And the reason why? A missing landing permit. A single piece of paper.
And this brings us right back to our narrator's perspective. At this point, all hope is just gone. He looks over toward the doorway and he sees his silent visitor again. But this time, death has a smile on his face. Or, as he puts it, maybe a smirk would be a more accurate description. It is a moment of just complete, utter despair. It really looked like the fight was over.
But his friend Charles, he just refused to give up. He gets on the phone and starts this frantic, desperate chain of calls. First, he calls the Ghana Airports Company. Nope, wrong number. We don't issue permits, they say. You need the Air Force. So his next call is to a retired brigadier general he knows, who gets him another contact. And finally, he's on the line with the Air Vice Marshal, the head of the Air Force, and you can just hear the desperation in his voice as he pleads, "Please, I beg you, my friend will not make it."
And somehow, unbelievably, it works. The landing permit is granted. The call goes out to the plane, which by now is already way over Mali, flying back to Europe. And for the second time, it turns around and heads back to Accra. You can just imagine the scene in that hospital room. Total eruption. Hope is back on the table.
Okay, so they have overcome just impossible odds to get this far. But believe it or not, the ordeal is not over. Not by a long shot. The final, chaotic act of this whole rescue is about to unfold right there on the airport tarmac.
3 hours. That's how long our narrator was stuck inside a sweltering hot ambulance, sitting on the tarmac, literally just meters away from the rescue plane. The AC was off, and his portable oxygen tank, it was getting dangerously low.
And this is where the whole thing almost failed for a second time. Not because of money or permits, but because of just pure bureaucratic chaos. I mean, there was no clear protocol for any of this. A gateman, just trying to do his job, is blocking the ambulance because they don't have the right piece of paper. Nobody knows what to do about immigration or customs, and all this time, the clock is just ticking, ticking, ticking. Not just on his oxygen, but on the flight's landing window in Zurich. If they're too late, they can't land.
And this brings us to this moment of just pure, desperate absurdity. Charles, completely frantic, finds the gatemen they need in the washroom. And in his panic, he just yells this bizarre command. The gateman, totally confused, maybe even a little scared, just runs out and opens the gate. It's this crazy flash of dark humor right in the middle of a life-or-death situation. And then, finally, after almost 4 hours of chaos on the ground, they wheel him up the ramp and onto the plane. As they do, he looks back towards the gate, and he sees his visitor from that morning. But this time, Death isn't smirking. He's walking away defeated. The escape is complete.
You know, at the end of the day, this whole incredible story just leaves us with a really profound question. This rescue, it was a complete chain reaction of love and loyalty. You had a daughter who just refused to give up, friends making impossible phone calls, a brother transferring a fortune without a second thought. It really makes you stop and think about those invisible networks of support that surround all of us, doesn't it? It makes you wonder, when one person's life is hanging in the balance, just how far does that web of community, friendship, and family truly reach?